Hello game designers, this is Mr. Sparks and we're going to go ahead and do lesson number 9 on our endless runner, and this is going to be setting up our spawn rates. We're going to fix one thing at the beginning, but we're going to set up our spawn rates for all of our different coins and gems and things like that, and our obstacles. But when we left off last time, pretty much our spawn rate was everything was going straight and was only spawning in the center. So what we need to do is go into our master tile here, and we're going to go into our master tile and we're going to fix one part here under our let's see, we want to go when we add a floor tile. So this would be in our game mode, and right here where it says spawn obstacle or pickup, we're actually going to have to insert this particular set obstacle spawn point. So we haven't ran this function yet. That was the issue. So it's only spawning the very first one. So we're going to fix that. We're just going to go right back here into this add floor tile in our game mode, and we're just going to drag off of here, and we're going to say set obstacle spawn points. So we're going to do this here, and we'll insert this in between set variable and the spawn obstacles. So we want to go ahead and set a spawn point up first, and then it will choose one of those. So let's go ahead and test that and see if we get a different result now. And we should now hopefully get we got a coin there in the middle, and there we go. Now we're getting some on the left, so they are spawning in different locations there. So that's the only thing we didn't that we forgot to do there, and so we got one over here on the right hand side. So that's all we needed to do to start with to get that taken care of. So the next step is we're going to go into our tile here, and we're doing our spawn obstacle. We're going to change a whole lot of this right here. So instead of using this particular area right here, we're going to be creating some macros, and macros will give us some probability, and we can actually set up a way to spawn different obstacles here with a different probability. So if we want, say, our least valued coin to have a greater value or a lesser value, then we're going to set those things up. Okay, so what we want to do in this set obstacle or spawn obstacle or pickup, we're going to get rid of this switch on int portion here, and we're going to use this right here. So we're going to actually use this, and we're going to be creating a macro, or several macros actually. So the one thing we want to do to first of all is we're going to just create a spawn rate macro. Okay, and so to create a macro, you would go right here and you just click this plus sign. We're going to call this spawn rate macro. Okay, in a macro you'll see it has inputs and outputs. So we're going to need some one input. So that's the only thing we need for the input here. So if we go right here, and over on the right hand side here, we're going to click the plus sign, and that's going to give us the ability to change the type of input we have. So we're going to just call this input, and for Boolean here, we're going to change this to an execute. So this will be an execute pin, which will allow us to input an execution wire to run all this code. For the outputs, we're going to need so we're going to need 4, I do believe. So we're going to go here and we're going to add 4. So the first one is going to be we're going to say spawn coin. And spawn coin, that will be an execute. We'll add another one. We'll call this one spawn gem. And let's just go and do 2 more. So here we'll say spawn an obstacle. And finally we'll say spawn nothing. So if the case gets to be, there might be some occasion where we don't spawn anything at all. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we're going to create a random float in range. So we're going to right click, random float in range. Okay, and we're going to use the range 0 to 1.0. That will give us we're going to use this for a 100% chance to spawn different types. So for our coins, we're going to start off and we're going to say, let me do it this way. We're going to create a branch first. So just hold B, left click, and input this in here. So if this condition is true, we're going to drag this into here, spawn coin. Okay, so the condition we're going to use is we're going to say from this condition here, we're going to say in range float. So in range float, and we're going to take the random value here, plug it into our value. So whatever this returns, we're going to test it here, and we're going to say anywhere from 0 to 0.4 will give us a 40% chance to spawn a coin. Okay, so we'll go ahead and draw a little box around this, press C to comment. We'll say 40% chance to spawn a coin. Okay, and we can go ahead and kind of drag across this and just hit Control W down here. So we'll be using the same basic thing, we'll just change the values. So if this particular thing is above 0.4, that would make this false. So we'll go down here to our branch here, and we'll take this output, plug it in here as well. So we want to check if this condition doesn't meet this one, it's going to say false. It's going to go down and it's going to check the same condition in the second one. So we're going to say the minimum here could be 0.4, and we'll say the maximum would be 0.5. So we have a 10% chance to get a gem in this case. So if this is true, we'll spawn a gem. And so we'll go ahead and we'll add a comment box around this and just say 10% chance to spawn a gem. Okay, and so we'll just repeat this process here. So we'll drag this down, hit Control W again, take our false branch here, drag that down, and we're going to say let's just do this one on 40%. So we'll say if this is 0.5 to 0.9. Okay, and in that case, well, no, let's change that slightly. Let's go here 0.55. So let's give this a 15% chance instead. Okay, and let's make this one 0.55 and this value 0.95. Okay, so here if this condition is true, obstacle here, we'll take this down, and we'll take this and plug it into the value. Okay, and so we'll go ahead and comment this and say there is a 40% chance to spawn an obstacle. Okay, and finally we'll do one more of these down here and take this down, plug it in, and we'll say 0.95 to 1.0. This will be our last one. Make sure you plug this false into this branch, and finally the true into this one. And so we'll have a 5% chance, or the last 5% chance will be to spawn nothing at all. So say a 5% to spawn nothing. Okay, so this will be for each tile. So each time that a tile spawns, we're going to check, first of all, we're going to say get a random float from 0.0 to 1.0. Then we're going to go up here and check the first condition. So if that happens to be, there's a 40% chance that we'll get a value between 0 and 0.4, which would in turn output to spawn a coin. If that value happens to not be within this range, it will be false, and it will go down to the next one, and it'll check to see is it between 0.4 and 0.55. If that is true, it will go to spawn a gem, and we'll be setting up one to determine which gem and which coin and things like that. So if that is false, it will go down to the next one and say anywhere from 0.55 to 0.95 it can spawn an obstacle. So if that comes true, it comes out here to the spawn obstacle output. And if that is false, it goes down to here, 0.95 to 1.0, the very last option we have. And there is no false because this is the last option. It doesn't get to here unless all the rest of these previously will become false. So we would only get a return here if the value is between 0.95 or slightly over 0.95 and 1.0, and then we would spawn nothing. Okay, so we can go ahead and compile that one. And so we're going to move on. And what we want to do is we're going to go out here to our spawn. So we can go ahead and close this one. And right here we've got spawn obstacle or pickup. We're just going to drag out this macro. So our macro pops up like this. So we've got one input here. Simple as that. And we got a spawn coin, spawn gem, spawn obstacle, spawn nothing. So this will determine inside this macro will determine which one of these output pins will actually get used. Okay, so the next one we're going to do is we are going to check and create one for our coin. So we'll go ahead and create our spawn coin macro. And that should be right here. We can go ahead and hit macro, and we're going to say spawn coin macro. Okay, and so here we're going to need one input as we did the other one, and we're going to call this one coin input. And for the output, we're going to need 6. So we're going to go output here. We're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so the first one we're going to need, we're going to say we're going to do a green coin output. And here we're going to say the parameter, that's going to be an execute. We're going to say green coin transform. And that one will be a transform type. Okay, next one be a blue coin. And then a blue coin transform. And that one needs to be transform type. And last one we'll say red coin, and then red coin transform. Okay, and we'll change this one to a transform as well. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to basically do the same thing. We're going to say random float and range. We'll give it the same parameters, 0 to 1.0. We're going to add, we'll go ahead and add our 3 branches. So just go 1, 2, 3. And true here goes in here. This true would go in here. This last true would go into the red one. You can drag this over a little bit. This false would go here. And this false would go here. Okay. So what we need next is we're going to drag this in here first. we're going to say an in-range float, and the value would go here. So we're going to need one of these for each one of the branches, so we can just go ahead and hit Control W while we have that selected. Control W. Plug in our condition. This down. Plug in our condition. So we'll make sure we plug our return value into here and our return value into here. Okay. So that should take care of all the initial plugins. So what we want to do is we want to decide what chance are we going to have to get a green coin. So we're going to say maybe 50% chance. So we'll do 0.5. We'll say about a 35% chance for a blue coin. So that would be our second one 0.5 to see 0.85, and 15% chance that we would get a red coin, which is the most valuable. So we'll say 0.85 to 1. So pretty simple here. So let's go ahead and organize this a little bit, and we'll go ahead and comment this and say 50% chance to spawn a green coin. Okay. Drag this down a little bit. This one here, comment, we're going to say a 35% chance to spawn a blue coin. And let's go ahead and make this interesting. So comment color, since we say that's green, we got green here, so we'll make that one green. This comment box is blue, so let's make that one blue. And this finally one, this one, comment, and we'll have a 15% to spawn a red coin. Okay, and obviously we will make this one red. Okay, so the one thing that we're still lacking is we're lacking the transforms here. So if we go back out here and we get this information here, so all this has been going into these other things here. So what we just need to take this here, and we're just going to say Control C to copy it. We'll go into here, and right down here at the bottom we'll say Control V. So we're going to have this right here. We can straighten this up a little bit. So this will get our obstacle spawn points, and it will return the transform from one of them. So we're going to take this here, drag this up here, and we're going to add a reroute node here. So we'll add a reroute node, nice little node here. We just kind of move it up here in the middle. You can take an output to here, output to here, just by dragging off of this reroute. So that way we don't have to drag a big line to every one of these. So this is pretty much all we need to do for this particular macro. So let's go out and let's go ahead and compile, and we'll go out here under our spawn obstacle pickup. We no longer need this here. So now we can take our spawn coin macro, drag that out here, and we can plug that into spawn coin. So now we have all these outputs here. So let's say that right here we're doing green coin. So let's change this one. So we're going to take our green coin output here, and we're going to grow our green coin transform into here, and we're going to change this to green coin. So we'll make sure this is the green coin. Okay. And then on this one, we're just going to say this one is already the red coin. So let's move this one up. So we'll plug this one in. Plug in its transform here, and we'll change it to the blue coin. Okay, and here we already have the red coin set, so we'll go ahead and do this, and we'll go ahead and do this. Okay, we got our return value. So depending on which one of this macro is going to take, if this macro chooses a coin, then it's going to go into this macro, and it's going to choose which coin based off the percentages, And then it's going to appropriately go out and add the child actor, which we have identified here. Let's go ahead and compile that. So these update. So we got green coin, blue coin, and red coin. So that's what we're looking for here. Okay, so the next one is the spawn gem. So instead of redoing all the same work, we're going to basically have the same information other than the outputs. So we're just going to take this spawn coin macro, right click on it, and we're going to say duplicate. And we'll just change its name here. We go back, take out the coin, and we'll say gem. Okay. And then all we need to do here is go into our comment box here and say green gem, and this one we'll say blue gem, and this one the red gem. Okay, and we'll click here and we'll say this should be the gem input, and we'll say this is the green gem, transform, the blue gem, transform. This is a little faster than redoing every bit of this all over again. And we'll just say the red gem transform. Okay, so we can compile that. Everything else can stay the same. We just have to change the names in here. Everything else will be perfectly fine. So we can go ahead and close that one out. And we go out here. And now we can take our spawn gem macro. We can drag this out here. And we can plug this into our gem input. So now we have this spawn gem macro. We've got our green gem and all this information. So we can go ahead and, but while we have these three, we can just take these three here, select those, come down here, Control W. And the only thing we need to do is just plug this in here, plug this one in here, change this child actor to we're saying this is the green gem, so we'll pick the green gem here. We'll plug our blue gem info in here. Okay, and we'll say gem, we want the blue one. Here on the red one, do the same thing. Plug these up. And we're going to say pick up the red gem. And then we just simply plug each one of these into our return value. Here, we'll drag this down because we're going to need it for the obstacles as well. Okay, so obstacle wise, let's go ahead and compile that. And if we look at our pickups, we don't really have, let's see, an obstacle. Our actors, we got our tile, we got our pickups, materials and textures. Okay, so let's go ahead and in our pickups, let's create us a folder. New folder, and let's say obstacles, and we can take this master pickup here. And we're going to have to do a little different. So let's go into obstacles here, and we'll just create one for now. We'll call this our new blueprint class here, an actor. Call it the master obstacle. We'll open this up. One thing we'll need is we'll need our static mesh, and we'll just call this obstacle mesh. We'll also need a box collision. Let's call this And let's unparent that. Okay, so the thing we want to do probably in here is take this obstacle mesh and move it up a little bit. Let's go maybe front view. Break that down. Let's just say we want that on 0, which is not what we want exactly. Let's say 25, 30. Let's go with 30. Okay, so that'll be close enough. So let's go here, perspective. And for obstacle mesh, we're not really going to give anything right now, but we'll just go in here to our construction script. And we're going to say, take our obstacle mesh here, drag it out. I'm just going to say set static mesh. And now we have an option here, so we're just going to promote this new mesh to a variable. We'll just call this mesh. Let's do this for a second. Let's take this here and let's just call this, rename this mesh. Compile that, and let's name this variable obstacle mesh. That makes a little more sense. Okay, and we can compile that. Okay, so what this will let us do, this will let us just actually take and assign a variable to that, value to that, and we'll actually populate that in here. Okay, so what we want to do is go back out here and we'll say, we'll go ahead and save all, and we'll make a child of this, and we'll say obstacle Okay, we're going to name this thing here. Let's call it, so obstacle child, let's just call it over here. We'll call it a rock. We got a rock here, so we're going to go in here, double click this, and you'll notice in here that this is all inherited. But we do have a variable over here under default, so we're going to go click right here and let's just type in rock. And we should have this SM rock right here. And so it'll add this this big rock in here. And one of the things we'll need to do is change the obstacle collision a little bit. So let's see if we change this to a wireframe, we can see it a little better. And let's change this to maybe 50, maybe 100 looks pretty good. Y, let's go 100. Let's go 50, maybe 100. And we can move this up a little bit. So if we kind of look in a front view here, looks like we can see kind of how that will look. That's pretty close. Maybe 125, maybe 150 would work. Yeah, let's try 150. 135. Let's try 135. That should cover that pretty well. If we go to a right view, to a left view, looking at perspective, we go back to lit, and for the most part, that looks pretty good. Okay. So it looks pretty good there. We can go ahead and compile that. And everything inside our master obstacle will inherit for here. So we can go ahead and close this out. And we're going to need here an overlap event. So when we go down here, so we select our obstacle collision, and we'll go down here. This is back over in our master obstacle, so all the obstacles will inherit this. We're going to say on component begin overlap. We're going to click that. and we'll get this here. We should be the only actor that it overlaps with, so let's go ahead and say other actor and say cast 2 runner base, and from there we should be able to say we can run our ragdoll death function. So that should be pretty much all we need to do for this particular part. Very simple, because if we run into one of these obstacles, we're just going to create our ragdoll death function in our runner base, and that should take care of that portion of it. And all the other obstacles will inherit all that. So we can go back over here to our master tile, and we can duplicate this macro here once again. And we'll duplicate it, and we're going to say here, let's say rock input, or excuse me, obstacle input, and here we're just going to say rock. So we'll say it's a rock, and we'll say the rock transform. Okay. We don't have any additional things. Let's say there's like a bush. Let's say bush. We'll create that, and we'll say bush transform. And this last one, let's say it's a chair. We might find some better ones later. We got this chair. We don't really have to do anything else with this up here other than change these, so we can say 50% chance to spawn a rock, 35% chance to spawn a bush, and 15% chance to spawn a chair. Okay, so we can compile that. We'll fix those up here in just a minute. So we go back out here, and under our spawn obstacle we can say, oops, we didn't rename this. So click F2, and we'll just take off this info here, spawn obstacle macro, and we can drag this one out, and we have all this here. We can take this here, plug that in. Now one of the things we can do with this spawn nothing is we can just kind of return out here, because that's going to spawn nothing at all. Okay, so we can drag this down here, and since we have 3, we take 3 more. So just drag, left click and drag across those, select them, move down here, and simply do that. We'll go ahead and run all these into our return node. So it looks like it's a lot of wires, but pretty simple in concept. So we'll go ahead and do the rock here, the rock transform, do our bush, do the bush transform, and finally the chair, and the chair transform. So let's go ahead, and before we finish that, let's go ahead and we can just basically here we can take this, create another child, and we can say change the name to bush obstacle. Double click that for mesh inherited. Let's see, nope, my bad, right here. So in this right here, we can go to where it says none. And if you just type in the word bush, you'll see there's a small bush. Looks like that. We can take our obstacle collision, maybe take our here, go to about 75 or so. Drag it up a little bit. Maybe on our X and Y, we'll make this say about 50 and 50. So that'll be our nice little bush. That's all we need to do here. You can compile that, close that out, and make one final one. Another child, and we'll just call this one chair obstacle. We'll open that up. Go here, and there is a chair. So we've got a little chair right here, looks like that. And we'll make our, let's make this about 75. Yeah, it looks good. And we'll just go 50 and 50. So that's pretty much covers everything we need right there. Maybe 60 on that. Yeah, that's good. Okay, that's more close to the size of the chair. So we can go ahead and compile that, save it. Go back in our master tile. And then right here where we're doing our rock, we can click here. And we just type in rock. So we got our rock obstacle. For the bush, we click here. And we've got our bush obstacle. And for the bottom one, we're using the chair. So we use our chair obstacle. Okay, and we'll go ahead and compile that. All these should update. Everything should be connected, ready to go. So when we decide to spawn an obstacle or a pickup, we will have all these different options here. So we can drag this down a little bit here in the middle. If we want to reroute this wire here, we could. Let's see, we can maybe route it. It looks like that. We can kind of see where that wire goes. Okay, so next thing we need to do is just test this thing out to see is it going to spawn different obstacles. So we'll go out here and we'll give it a try here and see what happens. So we're going down through here, and there is a coin. We got a blue coin this time. Come down this tile. Well, there was a blue coin we missed. There's a green one. It's another coin. There we got a gem. So let's see if we get any obstacles anywhere. Got another gem here. We're racking up some points. This tile we got nothing at all. Yeah, we got there. Oh, there we got a bush. So that's good. We're getting some obstacles. Got another coin. There's another bush. We got this tile we got nothing at all. We got two of them, nothing. We might want to change that to where we don't spawn nothing at all. So we got some rocks here. Oh, when I hit the rock and bush, and sure enough, there we go. We get a ragdoll. So we can adjust these accordingly. So of how we decide we want to the different instances or which ones you would rather spawn more often. So that's pretty much all there is to that. Pretty simple. When you get into this right here, the macros kind of do all the work for you. It's a lot of work initially, but it's much cleaner. If we were to have to do that all in this event graph of this function, it would be pretty taxing. So and very, very messy. So the macros make it much easier to handle all that process there. So that should be all we need to do for this video. When in the next one, maybe we may try to update our players' speed and things like that as he progresses through the level and through the course, and we may add a few more spawn points and things like that. So but we'll look at those in the next video. So get all this working here. If you got any questions or have any problems, please let me know, and that'll finalize this video.